Beast Wars episode 21, Possession. This was a great throwback episode to the original Transformers because Beast Wars does take place in the G1 continuity. It's like 300 years later or something like that. But this episode, we get to see the spark of Starscream take over for Waspinator, and I love that. I thought it was really cool. That's the picture I used in the thumbnail, which was kind of hard to get because they only do that, like that little scene is like a lightning strike, and so it's like during the flash, Starscream replaces Waspinator. And I was like, man, I hope I can get this, but I was able to get it. But this is a fun episode. It was really cool. Follows the G1 continuity really well. Scared me in the beginning because there's something on the case that talks about how it follows G1 continuity. And then when Starscream first takes over Waspinator, Megatron and really all the Predacons are like, okay, so you're Starscream, what exactly happened to you? And Starscream is like, oh, I was defending Megatron against this great, this giant transformer known as Unicron, and he destroyed me with a laser, but my spark lived on. And I was like, oh, that's not what happened. He got killed by Galvatron. Well, he said Galvatron, he didn't say Megatron. It was like, that's not what happened at all in the movie. He, tossed Megatron out of Astrojet, or Astrotrain. I always forget exactly what his name is. I want to say it's Astrojet. Maybe it's Astrotrain. I think it's Astrotrain, actually. But point is, he tossed Megatron out. He was finally able to be the leader. Unicron finds Megatron floating through space and turns him into Galvatron. And then Galvatron comes back and he just wipes out Starscream. And that was one of many deaths in the original Transformers movie. They killed a ton of the main characters in that movie. It was crazy. So when they first mentioned it, I was like, oh, that's not what happened. And, he dies in there. He does become a crazy, the show, G1 got really crazy after the movie. They did, like, some really crazy stuff. But after Starscream died, he actually became a ghost. Like, there's a whole episode in, like, the third or fourth season where Starscream comes back as a ghost. And I was like, holy crap, they have ghost Transformers. So, that's a real thing. And so that, it kind of made sense, like, he was a ghost, and so his spark was able to continue on. They don't really mention how his spirit traveled through time. That was just a random thing that happened. But it happened, I guess, whatever. So that was like the one thing I really had to let go because I was like, that, he already lied, so he didn't even give the real explanation of what happened. And then it's just like, well, knowing exactly what happened, and maybe I don't remember that episode, but I'm pretty sure they didn't send his spirit back in time. I could be wrong. I don't really know. I don't remember. But his spirit, is basically going through, and that's just how it is. Like, his spirit was flying through, and there's like this crazy thunderstorm, and Waspinator got taken over, and it's Starscream now. And so Starscream is like, I just want to be your lieutenant. I want to be, I'm Air Commander Starscream, so I want to be your lieutenant. I'll lead you against the Maximals, and we'll destroy them. And Megatron's like, okay, well, I guess we'll make that happen. And Starscream actually led a pretty good mission against the Maximals. He's like, we're going to do this. And it's like, that's exactly what they would expect. It's like, exactly. And then we'll send an extra team behind to attack them in a different location. And it actually worked. Like, when they first showed it, I thought it was like, oh, this is like the idea of the plan playing out. And then it would actually play out in a different way. But it was like, nope, this is actually the whole plan really playing out exactly as Starscream planned it. And I was like, holy crap, this isn't like a possibility sequence, because that's what I thought it was, where it's like they talk about the plan and this is exactly how it's supposed to go. I was like, no, this is actually how it's going. And I thought that was pretty cool. I actually enjoyed that. And the Maximals were pretty much getting, taken down. It's like, holy crap, they're attacking us from two different positions. Starscream taking over for Waspinator is a much better flyer, so he's flying super fast and doing like loops and spinning around everybody. And then like, how in the world, since when does Waspinator know how to fly like that? So it was actually kind of cool when Starscream actually knew how to fly. And they actually beat the Maximals. The Maximals have to leave their base. They have to take off. And Starscream takes over the base. And, he's like, oh, I'll take it over for Megatron. Of course, Starscream is Starscream. And he is like, Starscream is the #1 betrayal, within Transformers. Like, it's Starscream always trying to take over. So, of course, he and Black Arachnia end up teaming up. And Starscream is like, hey, I always wanted a protege. So, And plus she looked up, excuse me, she looked up information on him and is like, I know you didn't actually get killed by Unicron. I know Galvatron was the one that killed you. So, of course, he's like, well, why didn't you say anything? It's like, because, I want to get ahead. And he's like, I always wanted a protege. So, of course, they end up teaming up. The Maximals are kind of just out in the jungle, and Dinobot actually tells them exactly who Starscream is because he's like, fortunately for you all, I actually studied like the Great War, like the history of our people. And he tells them exactly what happened with Starscream. He's like, this is really what happened. And they do that actually before the scene with Black Arachnia, where he explains what really happened. It's like, okay, so they didn't ignore G1 continuity, which made me really happy. And so the Maximals are like, alright, so this is happening. We have to figure out how in the world we're going to get our base back. And it ends up being fairly easy for them because, of course, Starscream eventually ends up going against Megatron. He takes out Waspinator. So he and Black Arachnia decide to team up. They take out Waspinator, they take out Scorponok, and then they try to get back to the base and take everything over. And then it kind of devolves into they have to, Megatron and the rest of his people are dealing with Black Arachnia and Starscream, which ultimately ends up being Black Arachnia betrays Starscream, which, of course, if you didn't see that coming, you haven't been watching the series. So, of course, that's how that plays out, and the Maximals end up, it's kind of like a little bit of a three-way battle, in a very small sense. And then the Maximals end up getting their base back, and everything ultimately goes back to normal. They fix Waspinator and basically eject Starscream Spark, back out into space. And it was a simple little thing, but it was pretty fun. It was still a cool episode. It was a great throwback episode. Getting to see Starscream, like in the flashes and stuff, and getting the cool little alternate flashback because they actually showed Unicron. Even though they did the simple version, he was just the giant ball. I would have loved to have seen them do a fully realized 3D version of like transformed Unicron, but it makes sense. It was only for the flashback anyway, so why not just make it the ball? But it was really cool. I really enjoyed this episode. I was like, this is a great throwback episode. The whole thing was basically a reference to G1 compared to the episode where Waspinator was talking like one of the Insecticons and stuff. So it was really cool. I was like, this is pretty sweet. It was an actual difference. Like I said, Starscream was actually flying around like crazy. He was making great plans that actually worked, that, none of the Predacons thought would work. So it was actually kind of cool to see Starscream really take over and actually make a difference, at least for this episode. And then, of course, his betrayal kind of became what it normally does, and it didn't pan out like it never does in the G1 series until the movie actually came out. But it was a really fun episode. I actually enjoyed it. I liked the callbacks. I liked the visuals for it. At least getting to see Starscream a little bit was pretty cool. And like I mentioned, Unicron, seeing him was pretty cool as well. But overall, another good episode. Nice throwback one as well. I'm very excited for some of the other callback episodes that are going to be happening later in the series. But this is definitely a really fun, full episode to kind of reference the original series and talk about how things have changed and, little stuff like that, and kind of keep it going and talk about it, even though, of course, when I was a kid, I had no idea what the heck they were talking about. But now, I can truly appreciate all the references that they throw into the original series, so really love that. Starscream's always cool. They did change the voice a little bit, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't the same voice actor. It didn't sound like him. It could have been the fact that it was years later. But I don't believe it was the same voice actor, but they did change the voice just a little bit. Well, not a little bit. They actually changed it quite a bit from Waspinator, who has like sort of the pseudo-robotic, high-pitched voice. They did definitely change the voice, but I don't believe it was the same voice actor. Like I said, it could have been that person, but if it was, they did a totally different voice because it wasn't as high-pitched as Starscream was in the original series. So that's why I don't believe it was the same voice actor, but they did actually change the voice. And I thought that was a nice little touch as well. It wasn't just, oh, it's Starscream's spirit inside of Waspinator. It actually does, kind of take over a little bit. So, vocally speaking, he takes over a little bit too. So that was actually really cool. But if you guys have any comments about this episode or anything Transformers in general, of course, you guys can put your comments down in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching.